Hello, my name is Seokhyun Hwang and I'm a recent master's graduate at Gwangju Institute of Science and Technology in South Korea. I'll be presenting my paper titled ErgoPulse and I'm honored to present my work to you. Without further ado, let us begin the presentation. In immersive VR environments, haptic feedback enables users to interact with virtual objects in a way that closely resembles real-life experiences. Haptic research in VR is primarily focused on reproducing the tactile sensation associated with hands or enabling users to feel the weight of the virtual objects. There have been significant advancements in haptic systems for the upper body. However, the significance of lower body in real-world interactions emphasize the need for further research on lower body haptics. Previous research has aimed to provide haptic feedback to the lower body of users in VR by using grounded mechanical devices in the initial stages. Although these devices could effectively simulate the sensation of walking on different textured solid surface, they do come with some constraints, including large size, cumbersome installation, and limitations in supporting the free movement of users due to their fixed position on the ground. To address these challenges, recent studies have integrated haptic devices in the form of body-attached devices. These devices incorporate small actuators such as vibrational motors, magnetic fluid, and mini actuators. However, body-attached devices cannot provide large-scale kinesthetic force feedback that affects the entire lower body, not just on the feet, due to the limitation of the small actuators. Therefore, we have developed a ErgoPulse system using a EMS to resolve these technical trade-offs. This system delivers a significant kinetic force to the lower body while also supporting the user's freedom of movement with light equipment. So EMS uses electrical impulses to induce muscle contractions, emulating the way of our bodies naturally move our muscles. EMS has the distinct feature of being miniaturized as it simulates the muscle directly without the need for external actuators. Thus, researchers can create a lightweight, effective haptic devices. Existing studies have predominantly explored the use of small and lightweight EMS haptic devices for the upper body, such as possessed hand, electrocustins, and muscle-propelled force feedback. In earlier studies, researchers effectively delivered haptic feedback to the upper body using EMS with simple yet effective hardware devices with its own strategy for adjusting intensity of stimulation. However, despite these successful studies, we identified additional consideration for delivering haptic stimulation to lower body through EMS. For example, in a virtual environment where a user is crossing a fast-flowing river, the user's lower limb are influenced by various forces, including water currents, gravity, ground resistance, as well as those required for movement and balance. So to provide these different types of force to the lower body through EMS, it is necessary to calculate in a real time the amount of torque each force generates on the joint. The ErgoPulse system conducts a real-time biomechanical simulations to provide precise force feedback to the lower limbs, determining the intensity and location of EMS and applying it to the user. Thus, we created a EMS haptic system that accounts for the complex movements of the lower body by utilizing the OpenSim model, which is widely used in rehabilitation field for biomechanical simulation. Therefore, we conducted this study to answer the following three research questions. Next, I'm going to explain the implementation of ErgoPulse. So, ErgoPulse system consists of two main parts, a biomechanical simulation part for deducing lower body joint torque from virtual reality scenarios, and an EMS part that translates these torques into muscle stimulations. For posture estimation, we collect motion capture calibration metrics such as distance between joints, user height, and perform geometric calibration. So ErgoPulse processes the motion capture and geometrical data in real time to determine joint coordinates using inverse kinematics calculation. Subsequently, ErgoPulse calculates the joint torque using the force from the VR contents and the ground reaction force measured by the plantar pressure sensor. This calculation determines the torque that ErgoPulse needs to provide in order to deliver the haptic force in the contents. In the EMS part of ErgoPulse, it established an equation for each user defining the relationship between torque and stimulation intensity. So this equation specifies the intensity and location of the EMS needed to generate the calculated joint torque. To apply ErgoPulse to users, we used the following setup. So the user's movements were recorded in real time through 17 IMU sensors, and calculated EMS intensity was delivered to the users by medical devices. Next, I'm going to explain the evaluation process of ErgoPulse. So we conducted the following two experiments to validate our ErgoPulse system. So the first experiment measures the discrimination threshold of haptic force intensity and direction that ErgoPulse can provide to users. And in the second experiment, based on the result of first experiment, we created two simple gaming environments to measure the user experiences and immersion when applying ErgoPulse in an actual game environment. In order to create engaging content with ErgoPulse that provides a different intensity and direction of force, we need to ensure that users can distinguish the system's force feedback while developing a content or applications. So we conducted a study using a two alternative force choice 2AFC paradigm to determine the smallest differences in intensity and direction that a user with ErgoPulse can distinguish while walking freely. So the participants were presented with two stimuli, one offered the reference force feedback and while other imparted test force feedback. So we obtained the following results regarding how well users perceive changes in force through ErgoPulse, and based on this research, we created demo content that allows users to clearly feel the changes of forces. We planned Experimenter 2, E2, to conduct an in-depth investigations into users' experience with the content. And for more detailed research and analysis on DT, we would appreciate if you could refer to our published paper, as time constraints prevent us from presenting them in here. And based on values obtained through DT, we conducted experiments with two types of demo content to investigate the impact of ErgoPulse on user experiences. So in this study, we classified the force that can act on the user's lower limb in contents into two main categories: continuous force and impulse force. Continuous force situation involves force continuously acting on the lower limbs for a prolonged period, and on the other hand, when there is an impulse force, a force is applied to the lower limbs for a brief period of time, such as when kicking a ball or accidentally hitting a stone with the foot. To evaluate our ErgoPulse, we established the following three conditions. So firstly, the control condition, non-EMS, where no EMS is provided, and secondly, non-biosync condition, where EMS stimulation is provided but not calculated through ErgoPulse biomechanical stimulation, simply set at the half of the maximum intensity. And lastly, the ErgoPulse condition, where the intensity and stimulation points of EMS are calculated through the biomechanical stimulation. So the following figures illustrate how joint torque changes under the continuous and impulse condition according to each setting. So we measured the Jacquard similarity to assess the similarity between the torque experienced by users' joints in each condition and the torque experienced by the avatar in the virtual environments. So through this similarity measure, we were able to determine how closely the additional torque matched the avatar, thereby assessing the accuracy of the stimulation provided in each condition. So the result illustrated in the following graph confirmed that in both conditions, biomechanical stimulation with ErgoPulse provided more accurate haptic stimulation. Next, to determine the impact of ErgoPulse, which provided haptic stimulation with improved accuracy on users' content experiences, we used the Whitmer-Singer presence questionnaire. So we were able to confirm significant increases in presence under the ErgoPulse condition in both demo condition. Furthermore, we found that depending on the types of content, users' experiences and increases in different subscores of presence. We conducted user interviews to analyze the reason for this, but due to time constraints, we would appreciate if you could reference our paper. So in our final discussion, we were able to answer three RQs mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. So our discrimination threshold experiment revealed that ErgoPulse has varying user perception resolutions depending on the direction of the force. And we examined the variation in haptic force accuracy in the biomechanical simulation using Jacquard similarity analysis, and found that the presence of biomechanical simulation significantly improved similarity and found a significant increases in all aspects of user presence. User interviews to evaluate gaming environments to experience revealed a desire for temperature and tactile stimuli with continuous force, and that under impulse force, tactile stimuli are felt at points other than the impact point.